Hey guys, Lawrence. This is the second video for yarn topic. In this video, I'm gonna explain the yarn subcomponents, how the components of yarn, what are the components of inside of yarn system, and how they work together to locate resources for application, and how the resources are distributed among applications. So in textbook, we use this section, anatomy of a yarn application run. Okay. First of all, again, yarn is a resource, HDF, Hadoop resource management subsystem. And the first question is that, what are typical resources, computation resource in a Hadoop system? So as we know, computation or computer computation will be done by using CPU and memory. Okay. With that said, the CPU and memory are the typical two types of Hadoop resources, computation resources. That means your yarn subsystem mainly in charge of allocating CPU and memory and distributing them to applications. Okay, as we know, any Hadoop system consisting of multiple nodes. Okay, so physically, it looks like in front of you there's hundreds of computers. Okay, they work together to finish the big data computation. In terms of explaining yarn, the resource management in the whole cluster, there is one special node or computer there. We call it resource manager. Okay, right here, resource manager. It's simply a piece of software. We call it a process. Long textbook called it a long-running daemon. Okay, what is it? What is a process? You can just simply think it's a computer program that runs forever on your computer. So whenever that program, whenever a computer is running, that program is running. That program is running, it provides a service to other applications. Okay. So among hundreds of computers or nodes in your cluster, there's one computer is chosen, and the resource manager software was installed on that computer, and that software, that piece of software has been running all time, and that software is called resource manager. Okay, one per cluster. So there's only one resource manager in the whole yarn system. Another type of node is called node manager. Okay, so in the whole cluster, there's one computer is chosen as a resource manager, and all the rest will be the node manager software. Okay, it's very similar to the way of how HDFS was implemented. In HDFS, there's a one name node. Okay, and all the rest will be data node. So the one name node knows everything, and in managing all the data node, okay, that was about managing the storage space. In Yarn, we're managing the computation resources. So the resource manager node is in charge of being allocating and assigning computation resources. The node manager, the rest of computers, is in charge of physically finding those resources. So the way it works like a masterpiece, okay, the resource manager is a commander, okay? The commander issue commands to the node manager, say, node one, I need resources with a specific amount, okay, CPU time or memory. And the name node receive the command and try to allocate the resource and give it back to the resource manager. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, next thing is the concept called a container. This is very important. Okay, container is the concept that Yarn used to allocate computation resources. In the simplest way to understand a container, you can think of one container means a specific amount of CPU time, a specific amount of memory, and put them together, you wrap it up and call it a container. Okay. Again, container is about a specific amount of CPU time, a specific amount of memory, and combine them together, you make them into a package, and call that package a container. With that said, each node manager could create multiple containers within his own node, okay? And then whenever the resource manager asks for resources, the node manager is going to try to create containers and return a container to a resource manager. Okay, that's a container. Again, container is the concept is very important. It's widely used in a cloud computing platform. If you have been using AWS, then if you go to their management console, you're probably going to see the term container. Okay. Next, we're going to use this figure, okay, to explain the working flow. Okay. The client application, client node. Okay. For example, the client submit a MapReduce application to Hadoop, and like we see in this figure, okay, the MapReduce application, you can submit it to the Hadoop, and Hadoop, first, the touch point is the Yarn, okay? Yarn gonna receive the MapReduce application and start to try to allocate computation resources to the MapReduce application. So that's what shows here. The client application submitted to Yarn, and Yarn, now you see the resource manager node. Okay, the application is gonna first touch the resource manager node, which is a masterpiece of all resources in Hadoop. And this guy, you try to analyze the application, analyze this MapReduce, and decide, well, what resources that I need to allocate to serve this application. Then resource manager try to start containers. For example, the MapReduce application right now submitted need 5 containers. Okay, then the resource manager start to try to allocate 5 containers for this application. How that happened? This is the step 2, 2A, 2B. Okay, the resource manager is going to find a node manager and ask that node manager to start a master process. The master process was simply the first container that has to be created to serve this application. So right happens like 2A, 2B. The resource manager connect a node manager, and node manager start a container. Okay. After the first container was created, then there's 2 ways. If the application is not a distributing application, not a MapReduce, it's simply a computation, then one node manager is able to handle it, then simply this container start to process do the computing and return the results. If it is a distributed computing, such as a MapReduce application, then typically it requires multiple containers to do, because it do multiple mapper tasks. Then this master container is gonna go back to resource manager and ask for more containers to do multiple mapper tasks. That goes to step 3 and 4. Okay, after step 4 is very the same way, create multiple containers until all the mapper tasks has a container, has the resources to run it. Okay, this is a general workflow of Yarn. So what else? I think that's all for this second video, anatomy of a Yarn application run.